Welcome to Canada's podcast, the number one podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs.
Hello and welcome to Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. Joining me today is Kevin Harrison, who is principal of Sturgess Architecture in Calgary. I'm your host, Mario Toneguzzi. Thanks for joining us today, Kevin.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, let me just start by asking you, Kevin, just a little bit about Sturgess. Give me a little bit of the history of the company, when it started, and what you folks do.
All right. Well, our company was founded over four decades ago, really, actually in 1977, so 43 years ago, by our founder, Jeremy Sturgess. And I think during that time and up to now, what stands us apart is our kind of known track record for our diversity in the scale of work that we do, architecture work that we do. I'd say our studio leads with creativity that's expansively imaginative, yet meticulously thoughtful, and collaboration that merges with sort of our kind of versatile talent and our shared vision that originated over 4 decades ago and continues on through today. So a snapshot of those sort of 43-ish years, we're a collective of architects, designers, technical staff, which allows our distinct backgrounds to enable adaptability and sort of empower possibility. We believe that generic ideas and great design, they don't coexist. So we approach each client and each project with a sort of radically tailored lens and an invested exploratory process, leaving no stone unturned. This kind of unfolds with a commitment to context at every level, ensuring our designs are kind of deeply enlightened by its context, by its surroundings. So, we're pretty passionate about that and passionate about the longevity of the office and passionate about the work that we do. And, so there's we'll call it a 1-minute synopsis of who we are and what we do.
Now, in terms of the projects that you do, what kind of a range of projects do you do? Start explaining.
Sure. As I sort of briefly touched on, the scale of our work is extremely diverse. From the sort of I'll introduce a $4.9 billion transit project that is the City of Calgary's Green Line, to culturally vibrant public spaces, to custom built homes. We're responsible for that, all of that architecture and architecture that endures. So it's extremely diverse in what we do and the amount of work that we do.
Now, do you do your work primarily in Calgary or elsewhere in Canada?
I would say the majority of our work is located in Calgary and Alberta in particular, but we definitely have spread our wings somewhat. One of a larger project that we're currently working on right now is in Toronto. We've had work that has spread us overseas too in years past, whether that's a project, we did a project in Japan many years ago. We recently did some exploratory work for a project in Nepal. And so our work is global in a sense, but the majority of it is in fact in Calgary and Alberta.
I'm going to ask you about a couple of those projects. I know you mentioned Toronto. I'm assuming this is the Flyover Canada project?
You are correct, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? What is it, and when will it be done, and all that stuff?
Sure. Well, I'll step back a little bit. The project that we're working on in Toronto is for a similar client, essentially brother or sister company, if you will, of the Glacier Skywalk, the client that we did the Glacier Skywalk for in Jasper National Park. And we had such a positive experience working on that particular project with the client. They approached us to do another attraction-based project in Toronto. This is at the heart of the entertainment district in Toronto, at the base of the CN Tower, between CN Tower and Rogers Centre. So it's a pretty high-profile site. It's an attraction-based building, but one of the reasons they came to us was to create what we would sort of dub, and the client too, as an iconic building that supports their intended use and intended program for the space. So in essence, it's a flying theater, which is quite commonly being known and used more and more these days in an attraction-based program. But the additional ancillary program that supports that is all about user and guest experience. And what I mean by that is, because we're in such a public space, there's active urban edges, there's an active entry and cafe and retail space at the plaza level. And as you enter the building, you through guest experience, you start to navigate yourself through these spaces, whether it's what we're sort of dubbing as, upon ticket purchase and ticket entry, you enter into a boarding gate, and you begin to ascend and take off in a series of stages and processes that then lead you to what is the flying theater, which is a real story about Canada. You fly coast to coast, and you really experience your country through this fully articulating theater where we have this 19 meter diameter sphere where you fly across the country, sitting on these seats in this fully articulating theater space that it's a really amazing experience. And so, and upon close of that, there's still more public spaces that you can engage within the building. So it's really exciting for us. We are really thrilled about the opportunity and thrilled about the project in particular. Cool. So in terms of timing, as you sort of touched on, we're nearing the end of the design process, hoping to start construction in the spring of 2021. And then it'll give or take 18-ish months, 20 months to build, give or take. And so, so we're not too far off from seeing shovels in the ground, so to speak.
Okay, super. Now you mentioned the Glacier Skywalk and now in the Columbia ice fields. Can you maybe, for those who are not aware of that attraction, can you explain exactly what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, well, the project initiated as really an educational based project that brings insight and information to sort of receding glaciers in our world, really. Yep. And so more than just that, this project is yes, it's cultural, yes, it's attraction based, but it's also education based. And so you start by engaging the project through this 300-meter long walkway, an extreme walkway that's right along the edge of the mountainside. And along that walkway, there's a series of what we've been dubbing as nodes or educational nodes, whether they're geological nodes, whether they're nodes about the migration of the animals that would exist within that mountainside and within the ice fields. And then that leads you to what is the kind of culmination of the project. That is this glass cantilevered lookout over top of the gorge below. So, we're give or take 180 meters, I believe, above the gorge below, equivalent to the height of the Eiffel Tower, in the air on a glass walkway that perches you out high above the ice fields or high above the gorge below. It's a pretty powerful experience.
Well,
We're extremely pleased with it.
maybe one day I'll drum up the courage to do that, but because I do have a fear of heights. But man, oh man, for those of you out there who haven't seen it, just Google it and take a look. An unbelievable and very cool attraction.
Yeah, it's really interesting. While those who have fear of heights are often, nervous about it, our structural engineers involved in the projects say, you can park a 747 on that thing. So it's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So it's safe.
Okay, super. So I'm curious, these super cool ideas that you guys you get, where do they come from? Like, how do you, how do you get the creative juices going for that, for all these different and unique projects that you do?
Sure. Well, I think all of our work starts with two particular things, and the client being one and the site being the other. Mm-hmm. And arguably you can't create something without those. And so we then get inspired, but a client comes to us with a desired program, whatever that might be, and typically a site associated to that. And so we then visit the site. We look for cues, we look for context, we look for opportunities that the site presents us that speaks to the program that the clients bring to us. In the case of Glacier Skywalk, we were really inspired by the geological nature of what existed within the landscape there, and that kind of inspired the formal representation of the project itself. In the case of our Flyover Canada project, because this is called Flyover Canada, how can we use the kind of iconic nature of what is Canada as a representation to how we might design our building and how we might represent our building. So, we have forests throughout our country. So can those forests inspire a sort of a wooded experience or some representation of that? We have glacial conditions in our country. We have icebergs. Can that inspire some sort of architectural representation? And so we look for cues throughout the landscape, throughout the site, and draw that with the client's program. And so it comes from everywhere is the answer.
Now, in this pandemic world that we live in, and obviously more people are working from home, you have a program or an initiative called Office Retreats. What is that all about?
Well, it came to us because of COVID, really. Like everyone else, kind of whatever it was, second week of March, it was everyone's working from home, and it just turned this world upside down. And well, you can see here, I'm actually at the office, but I'm the only one here. But those who are working from home, it inspired you to think in other ways. I'll use myself as an example. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old, and working from home was pretty challenging, given the nature of 2 young boys. Other people have different conditions. So, but working from home, how can you create space, create what might be dubbed as a sanctuary to actually be productive? And a kitchen table may or may not be that solution, but it got us thinking, how can we design these ideas of the office retreat that supports really taking from an idea from the land use bylaw and building permit? How can we design this space that doesn't require a development permit, that doesn't require a building permit, but it can be this sort of adaptable, mutable, small space that can be your office sanctuary, that can be done in your backyard as a means to be creative, be productive, have an opportunity to actually be able to concentrate without the potential for interruption, if you will. And so that's where the idea spawned from.
Okay.
And then internally as an office, we said, okay, well, let's make this an internal office competition. And so a group of us, we broke out into separate groups and designed a series of them. And so we designed 6 of them, all different, all unique in their own right. And it was really exciting for the office. It gave an opportunity to take what would be, arguably a challenging time associated to COVID, and create something fun and interesting and exciting, yet also something that is valuable to the experience in which we're dealing with these days.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited about it.
Excellent. So I'm just curious, how did you become an architect, and why did you become an architect?
Well, it's I would say it's been in my blood, my whole life. My father's a contractor, and I started working with him at the age of 12 in the summers. Whether that's, doing what 12-year-olds do, pushing wheelbarrows, digging holes, those sorts of things, and continue to work with him, up until I graduated high school. I then worked again for a year with him before going on to school. I came here to go to SAIT, did architectural technologies at SAIT, always knew that I think I wanted to become an architect. And so after graduating SAIT, I worked for a few years for a developer here in the city. And then I headed out east to Halifax to get my master's degree, knowing fair well that it was always something I wanted to do. And, after school, so the story goes, I started here, and I've been here for, including I did a couple of work terms as a student at the office, but I've been here for 16-ish years now. And, it's obviously I'm a principal. It's a place for me, but yeah, I've always been inspired by architecture and always thought it was for me. It was something for me.
So what does your father think of some of the stuff that you come up with?
Well, I mean, I think he's, like any parent, always proud of their children.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty, well, I use they because it's always mom and dad, not just dad. I think, it's they're really excited about, seeing what, their child or their children can achieve. I think as a father myself, as a parent, seeing excitement, seeing progress, seeing how your children can achieve something is extremely powerful.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at things, I'm just wondering, is there anything that you'd like to do that you haven't done yet? From an architectural point of view?
There is lots. The list is long. I think on some level, as an architect, you're always inspired to want to do more. Whether more is bigger or smaller, it's to be determined. But I'm very much interested in starting to really see how this office can do bigger projects, whether it be performance venues, whether it be stadiums, whether it be museums, those sorts of things. Really excited about how we might bring ourselves to a position where we can work on those types of projects. It's the opportunity to design projects and work on projects that facilitate really human connection, human opportunity, human engagement with the environment we're really passionate about it, and we really want to relish that kind of opportunity. So yeah, the list is long, and will continue to be long for as long as I'm practicing.
Now, as an entrepreneur, Kevin, a couple of things in that area. I'll ask you, but first of all, what's the biggest challenges you face as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, well, I think the usual thing about money is always a question, but I don't think of it in that sense. It's, as someone who's running an office, our office is a sort of small to medium sized architecture office. We range anywhere between 15 to 20 people at any given time. And so what does that mean? That actually means, we have 15 to 20 families to feed. And so, how do you, as an entrepreneur, how do you put yourself in a position to be able to do so in such a manner? What I didn't touch on a little bit about our office is the culture that we create in here. Is those who work in our office are really passionate about the work that we do, and passionate about this in particular, and that's because it's the culture that we create, and so we're almost like a family, or an extended family, if you will. And so, when you have good days, you experience it. And when you have bad days, the family experiences it too. But the way we feel about each other is extremely, it's powerful. And so as an entrepreneur, what can I do, or how can I create opportunity to continue that engagement, that culture, that powerful connection that we have as a team and as a group working together. And so, does that mean pounding the pavement? It usually does, but it also means more than that, because how do I get to know everyone on a personal level as an employer, but as their friend as well? That, to me, I see success and opportunity through that means. And that's where I get really excited about the office, about the team, about what we do, about how we can better ourselves because of it. And so, I talk about 15 to 20 families to feed, because it is. And so, I'll say, metaphorically, I got big shoulders. I can carry the load, and I want to be able to support our group, however that is. And I'm passionate about it for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that I am always curious about, when it comes to entrepreneurship, is that obviously, being an entrepreneur, you really have like two jobs, right? You're the job of what you do, right? Being an architect, but then the job of being a business owner, right? How do you juggle those two?
It can be challenging, and I would say, in broad sense, it's two jobs, but there's probably like 100 of them. Your HR, your business development, your et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you juggle it? Well, I mean, I think it's about integrating it into your life as a kind of holistic approach. And so, yes, architecture, I got into architecture because it's my passion and I love it and I love what I do. At the same time, being an entrepreneur is equally rewarding in the sense of, how can you see something come to fruition? And so how do you juggle it? It can be hard. It's 24/7, 365 is the simple fact of the matter. And but what I think is most important as to how you manage that is you be in the moment, and you be present in everything that you're doing. So if I have a meeting with our team about a project in particular, I'm concentrating on what the conversation is about, as we're doing right now. I'm not daydreaming about something else, because if you're in the moment, if you're present, you can be engaged and you can manage things otherwise. The same is said if I'm not at the office and I'm playing with my kids or my wife or whatever it might be, and something actually comes up from the office. It's like, okay kids, can you give me 5 minutes? I need to just deal with this.
Yeah.
And I'll deal with it. I'll be in the moment. I'll be present, and then I'll come back and I'll be in the moment and I'll be present. And so I think for me personally, that's the key to how you manage being, doing the job versus being an entrepreneur and that sort of thing.
Okay, super. Now, speaking of juggling, how do you create that work/life balance out there? What do you do on that side of the
Yeah, I mean, the notion of balance is more for me about integration, and so, you know, arguably you can't work 24/7, 365. We all know that, but there's a level of being a business owner that demands the kind of metaphorical notion of what that is. And so,
yeah.
how do you balance it? I think it's in fact being what I just talked about. It's being in the moment. And so, you know, you do what you do during the day, and whether it's, you know, whether you're working from home now, or in my particular case, I'm at the office, and you come home and you be in the moment. And if you need to respond to things that speak or that are, you know, urgent, if you will, it's a simple balance, you know, and as long as you're in the moment, I think for me personally, I think I can balance it, and I think I can handle it, and I think I can integrate it in such a way that doesn't carry so much weight that it becomes a burden.
Yeah, exactly. What other things do you do besides having architecture as your passion? What other hobbies or pursuits do you have?
Well, I would say I'm a pretty avid sports fan. My playing days are arguably over, and so I'm kind of living through my children, if you will. I help coach my son's hockey. I'm pretty passionate about baseball and hockey in particular, but you know, that's one thing as from a sports perspective that I really enjoy. I also am on the board of directors at the Grand, and so you know, the notion of culture and theater is really important to me, and it's important to how we as a society experience each other and experience art, and so, you know, there's avenues beyond just the work and the business that I'm equally passionate about.
Now, when you mentioned your playing days are over, did you play somewhere, like play sports?
Yeah, I played both baseball and hockey competitively. I grew up in Nelson in BC.
Oh my.
And so, you know, it's a lot of what we did growing up as kids, and you know, you do that and you have fun, and you hang out with your friends, and you know, it's a really, you know, team camaraderie is a sort of metaphor for life camaraderie, and so I really appreciated that.
Well, just as an aside, my very first job in journalism was at the Nelson Daily News.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 40 years ago, May 1979, I moved from from Ottawa to Nelson, and became sports editor at the Nelson Daily News. So I know that area quite well.
That's cool.
Yeah. Was that part of the I guess the attraction for you for doing the Columbia Icefield thing in BC, and part of all that natural landscape? And
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, growing up there, you know, we live just outside of town, and I grew up on 17 acres, and so the lake was our front yard, and the mountains the backyard. There's a kind of beautiful experience to nature that you don't often get in an urban setting, and perhaps as a kind of, you know, underlying thing that's what drew us there for sure. I mean, I think everyone would say, you know, do you like being outside, or do you like nature? Do you like the mountains? Like, most people are going to say yes. And you know, so, yeah, exactly. You know, so it's, having grown up there was great though, for sure.
Super. Well, thanks very much, Kevin, for taking the time and speaking with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed this. I just like to add just one thing, you know, about our work that I think that, you know, sort of resonates with us. And when we talk to those who know our work, and clients that we talk about, you know, to us, what we do is more than architecture. You know, we're here to sort of create extraordinary environments that elevate the everyday. You know, we're here to enhance the human experience, and I think, you know, if you talk to a lot of our clients, they can attest to that for sure. And if a client can attest to that, I think what we're doing is successful. And so, you know, we're really proud of what we do for those reasons.
Okay, super. Thanks, Kevin.
Mario, I really appreciate it. I thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, that was Kevin Harrison, Principal of Sturgess Architecture in Calgary. This has been Calgary's podcast on Canada's Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mario Toneguzzi. Thanks for joining us today.